You're now listening to our second episode on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm so excited.
Sanity at the
Who
movies.
knew this would be the one that we were really excited to talk about, Nathan? Not me.
No. Obviously, it is our favorite film. Jake's got the poster.
Yeah.
He actually hung it on his ceiling so that every night he
I
can
can
just
look.
lay on his back, cuddle up to his
Look at
wife, and just look at just
60-year-old Harrison Ford
Yep.
and what's it? Kieran?
not Keira Knightley.
Yeah, I know.
that-
Karen Allen.
They should have gotten Keira Knightley. she could have like acted or something.
Well, I was somehow making a portmanteau of Karen and Kiera. So this is like Kieran.
Kiara and for a long time it was Indiana Jones' daughter. That was part of the pitch. I was actually looking the other day at some, scripts that floated around.
Huh.
So there was Indiana Jones versus the Saucer Men, which in some form was like just George Lucas going nuts. I would actually love to see this one. I might actually really like, and you might too. It is like the prequel.
Why does nobody want to let George Lucas just go nuts anymore? Like, I know that everybody reacted hard to the prequels, but goodness gracious.
But here's the thing about the prequels. They've never not made a ton of money. From a business standpoint, the prequels did just fine. And it really wasn't one of those kinds of Batman versus Superman thing where it made more money than you or I could ever dream of, but it didn't actually do $1 billion like they wanted it to. The prequels just simply were moneymakers. And
Right.
Clone Wars and the merchandise, like,
and everything that's come out of it, people still show the prequels to their kids, and the kids like the prequels better than the original trilogy. And
yeah, they were moneymakers and they were legacy builders, and they continue to be moneymakers to this day.
in terms of the world building that was done, and in terms of the technological advances pioneered through the creation of those movies, like it's just like, yo, let George go, free George.
Yeah, George, honestly, I mean, I suppose we've gone off on this rant a million times. We don't have to do it again, but he knew what kids wanted. It turns out a bunch of middle-aged men that only want you to recreate the feeling of that they had
Their
as
own
young
childhood.
kids watching those old movies. They aren't the target audience.
Yep.
And so I don't know whether George Lucas would have made a good Indiana Jones movie. I think it probably would have leaned even more into the things that people don't like nuke the fridge, like gopher, CGI gophers, like let's get a bunch
Prairie
of monkeys
dogs,
to
yeah.
attack Cape.
Yeah, and let's have the ants pull them down the hole and eat them alive.
And I don't really like any of those things, but I think in a curious way, this movie is splitting the difference,
And that's the one thing you can't do.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to go whole hog into, like, I am famously...
Don't be afraid of failing. If you're going to do Indiana Jones, don't be afraid of failing.
Right. And what you don't want to do, like, you can do classical, crisp, Spielbergian action, or you can follow the Peter Jackson model. I mean, I, as a guilty pleasure, enjoy, like, seeing CGI dwarves defy physics as their barrels go flying through the air and stuff like that. People's mileage may vary on that sort of thing, or that I think I'm the only person in the world that liked Peter Jackson's King Kong, which is such a ridiculously...
Never saw it.
Yeah, I didn't even feel compelled to see it. But if you did, it's like the purest experience of Jacksonian action and Jacksonian physics. There's a scene where King Kong is fighting two T-Rexes off a cliff, and then they get caught in vines and they go tumbling, and the woman is hanging on to one of the T-Rex's teeth as they go. It's so stupid, and it's so Looney Tunes, and it's so over the top.
Is it as stupid as Legolas running up falling blocks while fighting?
It's about that stupid. I mean, it's right on that. But to me, I like Legolas running up blocks. I mean, it's awful. It's stupid, but it's proud of itself, and it's,
it's really it's really excited to be here.
it's excited to be here, and I can take that. I'm just glad we've got a cheerful, obnoxious friend.
So happy that he gets to be part of the crowd.
Well, and Peter Jackson to me always does seem like there's the boy on the playground who's like, I saw Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones slid under a truck. There's that boy on the playground, and then there's the boy on the playground that's like, oh yeah, well, I made up a game where my hero, Indiana Bones, slid under 5 trucks, and then he killed 20 Nazis with there's
with
that
one
kid,
punch.
and that's Peter Jackson. It's like bigger is better, more is more. If the audience liked Legolas surfing, then surely they'll like him elephant surfing. If they liked him elephant surfing, of course they'll like him barrel surfing and spider surfing. And we cannot do without.
Legolas surfing.
We are just going to push into self-parody. And Spielberg has actually a number of moments like that. There's that stupid part where Karen Allen drives the truck over the cliff and it hits the tree and then it flips back.
Slowly lowers itself into the... Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah, it lowers them into the water and then it snaps back and hits the bad guys and knocks them down. It's so stupid, but if the whole movie was promising you that and then delivering that, and okay, it wouldn't feel like Indiana Jones. I don't know that any of us would like it, but at least it would feel like a cohesive something. It's like the prequels. The physics are weird. It's way over the top. It's a lot different than Star Wars. You can either get on board with it or you can reject it.
Sucks. Yeah.
Decide it sucks. And everybody kind of did one of those two things. Indiana Jones could have, I submit to you, I guess. I mean, it's probably not the best idea. I'm not saying it's my ideal, but they could have just done CGI cartoon Indiana Jones, or they could have done crisp, clean, awesome Indiana Jones. But what really doesn't work is having it kind of feel like it's supposed to be set in our world with our physics, and then suddenly you're doing Peter Jackson physics.
Yeah.
And like, actually, did you ever see Steven Spielberg's Tintin?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's one of the best late era Spielberg, let's recapture the magic.
Yeah, that was good. Movies. That's good. And his BFG was pretty good too.
I have never seen the BFG actually.
It was pretty good.
But Tintin is all kind of, it's a literal cartoon. It has cartoon logic in it. And that's fine. And it allows Spielberg to do a lot of gimmicks and ideas and stuff. It also allows him to bring all the action without having to engage in any literal violence.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know we're just kind of talking about all kinds of things. We haven't even properly gotten into this podcast. I don't know if we've even introduced us, but I think it's worth noting.
I'm Jake. That's Nathan. He's your humble and obedient host.
Yep.
Here we go.
He's your pastor who's a master of Indiana Jones talking. I think it's really worth noting that I think Spielberg's attitude towards violence changes after Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, which are kind of a 1-2 punch.
Mm-hmm.
I read somewhere when I was reading about all the rejected drafts, at a certain point, they had one that involved, I think you and I actually said, why didn't they do this on our last episode? It involved like Nazis that had escaped to Argentina or something like that. So
we did.
Like they didn't want to do Russians, and so they were going to do Nazis again.
Yeah, let's go to Argentina,
Which
we did it on the bill.
Was that?
I said we did it on the bill.
Did we do it on the bill? Oh, yeah, we did do it on the bill. That's right.
You remember?
Our most beloved episode ever.
That's our Indiana Jones episode.
Our Indiana Jones episode.
But surprise, Indiana Jones was a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. It was deep. And I don't know. Go listen to that one, folks. And will we tell you what it is if you don't know? No, just listen to the whole bill and you'll get there eventually.
Directed by Rian Johnson himself.
Yeah. But you didn't know that Rian Johnson worked on the bill.
Yeah.
He might as well have. I don't know what that meant. I don't know who that was insulting. Probably us. I stand by that episode.
I do too.
People were of two camps about that episode.
They just weren't ready, man.
They just weren't ready. Yeah, maybe one day they will be.
Yeah, some people were ready. You guys got it.
Yeah. But I think Spielberg, he really enjoys violence in the era of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. Those are very gleefully violent movies, and it's all about let's chop up the bad guys in as many creative ways as possible. And let's make it pretty grisly, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked at length about how those movies are grislier than people tend to remember. And then you see him start to kind of become a family man and get uneasy with it around the time of Last Crusade. That movie's a lot gentler than the old ones.
Yep.
But then I think he does Schindler's List, and he actually has to spend a year or 2 years or however long it was reckoning with, this is what the Holocaust was actually like, and this is what it did to my people, and these are who the Nazis were. They aren't just cartoon characters from...
Yeah, we're not going to play a cartoon game here. We're doing this realistically.
Right, and this is soul-deadening and horrible and horrific. And then he immerses himself in Schindler's List, and like, this is what... Or not Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I'm going to figure out viscerally what was it like to...
Mm-hmm. I am going to try to portray it.
Right. I want to put you in the D-Day invasion and make you understand exactly in a visceral way how horrific it was. And I think of all the war movies before and after, that one is say what you will about the rest of the movie, but that sequence is probably the most successful sequence ever done of just a sustained, the terror and the horror of modern warfare kind of. I mean, I don't know what else. There's things like Apocalypse Now that sort of get at it in big symbolic abstractions and stuff, but
and people have tried to do similar things. Christopher Nolan tried his hand at it. Everybody's tried their hand at it, but I mean, nobody had done anything like that before Spielberg.
Yeah, and
it's still the benchmark.
It's effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a guy that has schooled himself on how much violence actually hurts and what it looks like and what it feels like. I think
I feel squeamish, right?
Yeah, I think he just feels squeamish, and I don't know that I want to resent him for that. I think it's just true. Like, it's just not as much fun to contemplate what it might be like to stab or punch somebody or something like that after he's actually gone through those things and just getting older. And you see with things like even his popular entertainments after that, like Minority Report, like War of the Worlds, they can be pretty grisly, but it's always kind of dark and grimy, and there's nothing particularly fun about. I mean, the chase scenes are fun in Minority Report, but it's a very serious movie that takes the violence seriously, and it's scary and big, and we're not on a fun Indiana Jones adventure with all this stuff. We're on
which you can argue is real maturity or a real maturation point, and not just we don't want to glorify violence, right?
No, that's exactly right. I think there is something that's cynical and gleeful about the violence, and not just Temple of Doom, but Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it does make that movie less than it could be. And it's in many ways a perfect movie, but we don't need Indiana Jones angrily hitting the gas so that he can run over that last Nazi. We don't need all the blood in that bar room scene, you know.
Or the propeller.
Yeah, or the propeller.
And there's a certain comedy to melting out and blowing up all the Nazis that could have had a little more gravity. Could have had more gravity to it.
Yeah, there's just, I mean, it is just gleeful. I think the Power of God scene is the scene where I feel most like it sort of makes sense that it would be gleeful, because we are melting the Nazis for looking into the things of God. I mean, if you've ever had an excuse to just melt some heads, I guess that's it. But yes, there's a cynical and grisly element to it, and that's only done more so in Temple of Doom, as we've talked about a lot. But some of what makes this movie not work, I mean, I don't know, how do we talk about this? Because I'm glad Spielberg matured. I'm glad he started to take violence more seriously. On the other hand, this movie is so lacking in any kind of visceral feeling of
joy
in the action.
Yeah.
You know,
none of the action, whether it's even the motorcycle chase or whatever, none of the action actually feels fun or inspired.
Yeah.
The motorcycle chase has its moments, but
it
just doesn't feel like, even the places where Last Crusade was doing retreads of the action of Raiders, the movie had its own life and verve and joy, reason for being, other than we all finally agreed and came to terms on another Indiana Jones movie.
Right.
But everything feels tired.
Yeah. Well, and it's, you know, it actually points to maturity in Spielberg, but it also points to a certain kind of ongoing maturity or immaturity, insofar as once you take away his desire to violently dispatch the villains, you take away
Why can't he tell the story? Why can't he tell a story that's fun?
Yeah. The challenge then is, okay, violence is not really a tool that I feel like using in terms of blood and guts, but I still have to create a propulsively exciting action thrill ride. So how do I do that? And then you have a lot of tools still to work with. You've got vehicular mayhem, you've got suspense, you've got Indiana Jones dangling over high heights. I mean, you've got all kinds of things that don't actually involve shooting or maiming or stabbing.
Or blowing people's heads up.
Or blowing people's heads off, which he obviously wasn't interested in doing. But then it's like, once he didn't have that he almost wasn't interested in doing it anymore at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I mean, Errol Flynn used to have sword fights that weren't that grisly, but they were still exciting. Like,
yeah, you can do tension and drama without the blood and guts.
Well, and even like, okay, Mad Max Fury Road, pretty violent, gory movie, but not all of the action is coming from, we like to see people killed. A lot of it's coming from, like, it's fun to see motorcycles jump high into the air. It's fun to see vehicles smash up.
Weaving and smashing and creative looking vehicles and inventive way. Like, I don't even think, I saw that movie once and I don't think of it as a a gory or bloody movie. I don't have the memory. What stands in my mind as a great action movie isn't. I just don't have the memory of the blood and the gore. I just have the memory of the thrill and the suspense of the chases and the stuff. Like, it's just that it's the art of maintaining tension over long periods of time.
Right.
Like, that's what's cool. Like,
and that's what George Lucas is traditionally a master of doing in a very clean, kid-friendly, not violent at all way. I mean, whether it's, Return of the Jedi, we're weaving through a forest on these really fast speeder bikes, and we just don't want to wipe out by hitting a tree. Or
it's a pod racer.
Yeah, the pod race is, and maybe slightly in this day and age, undersung sequence, but what a perfect action sequence. And it's just based on a race, and there's some violent intrigue, and some people get blown up, but none of it's offensive or glorying in anything that's nasty. It's just the excitement of how's this little kid who has the Force going to use it to win. Those are some random preliminary thoughts to this episode. Now we have to talk through the rest of the movie, because we only actually talked through the first scene. We only got through Nuke the Fridge. So we have to see what else we have to say.
We have to relive the rest of that movie?
We have to relive the rest of this movie.
Shoot me.
Real quick, and then I want to talk a little bit about...
If I wave a sword around, will you shoot me and put me out of my misery?
Yep, Jake, because I am all about the violent dispatch of my enemies in the most callous and humorous way that it can possibly be done. So I want to talk about that, and then we need to talk about where this fits in the anti-hero's journey, which we will do. Last time, Jake, you'll remember we actually came up with, I think you came up with, a better way to end this Nuke the Fridge sequence.
Which is the bomb is a dud.
The bomb's a dud, or the bomb lands, doesn't go off, Indiana Jones gets away.
The bomb lands on the Nazis, maybe.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or lands in front of them and maybe creates a hole, or some comic scenario where the Nazis or the communists get taken out by it, but Indiana Jones doesn't. Maybe he throws a final punch to somebody who's stupefied and takes their truck and gets away, and then suddenly the bomb goes off.
Yeah, and then it's Chekhov's nuclear bomb. It needs to go off, and we need that iconic shot, which I do like from this movie, of Indiana Jones in his hat and jacket standing in front of the
mushroom cloud.
Well,
it helps so much give the atmosphere that you want if you're going to do a Saucerman movie.
Yeah.
So, you take us back. Man, learn some lessons from the Iron Giant when you do. But take us back.
There's so much that this movie could have done with 1950s nostalgia.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have this built in. It's what Back to the Future trades on in spades. I mean, we all love to make fun of that culture and kind of enjoy living in that culture. I mean,
yeah,
and I know Lucas, he made American Graffiti, which I've never seen, but it is like the benchmark for the let's do greasers and diners and hot rods kind of movie. And this movie only pays lip service to that a couple times. And it's like
really early on out of the gate, and then it's basically over.
And then when the scene with the motorcycle chase and everything happens on the college campus, and so you have
and you got Mutt and the greaser fight and whatever.
In the background extras, you're going to see like a lot of girls in sweaters
Poodle
and
skirts
long skirts, and all that stuff, which is fun, but there's not enough of it.
Yeah, once that's over, then we're just back in the jungle,
Yeah, let's do something with the 1950s. Let's do. If we have to have Marion in this movie, let's do Marion, the bored 1950s housewife who initially rejects the call to adventure or something like that. I don't know that that's a good idea, but let's somehow use the milieu.
Right. We're going to use communists. Well, let's play with some Sputnik and let's draw on Red Dawn and some other fun. Have it be in the United States, for goodness sake.
And exactly.
You're going to bring the Russians.
And if we're going to have Indiana Jones' son character be a greaser, which actually I don't think is that bad of an idea, let's do it for more than just some mannerisms and kind of dressing, cosplay. It's really, there's nothing intrinsically greaser about that character. He just dresses like Marlon Brando from The Wild Ones. It's like, let's have it be part of his character that he's into motorcycle culture, or that he's on a college campus or just out of high school, has a girlfriend.
Let's give him something that actually is distinctive and feels as iconic as the fedora and the whip.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they sort of half-heartedly tried with his knife and that he's always twirling.
Yeah, but
his hair that he's always
combing.
but it is so lame. Well, okay, so next in the movie, we have this wonderful scene where, and I'm being sarcastic, folks, in case you were wondering, where these two agents interview Indiana Jones and they're suspicious of him.
Yeah.
And we learn about his war record. We learn how he's like this decorated hero, which I'm not even sure how I feel about that. I don't know. How do you feel about, I mean, the Indiana Jones of Last Crusade, I guess, had kind of become that kind of all-American. He's going to be at every famous thing hero, just in the way they portrayed his boyhood and some of the stuff that they did to make him more overtly heroic. But I don't know that the scrappy Indiana Jones of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom is actually someone who cares all that much about being a Humphrey Bogart at the end of Casablanca kind of agent who's on the lines of everything that's happening in World War II. And I don't know. Whatever. It's fine. But I guess the big question is, what was the point of that scene again?
Politics.
What politics, though? I mean, who cares?
The Red Scare was bad. It implicated even people that were heroes like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, but apparently this movie, I guess we talked about this last time, but Cate Blanchett and her motley crew invaded Area 51, killed everybody, and stole our most top secret resources. The communists in this movie really are that bad.
Yep.
Actually. You can't tell us, you can't have a bunch of characters bemoaning the Red Scare and then turn around and tell us we should be scared of the Reds.
Yeah. There's just stupid, confusing messaging.
Yeah, I guess that's why Argentinian Nazis was actually probably a pretty good idea, because we can all just hate the Argentinian
We can
Nazis.
all just hate the and we can have the Nazis, I hate these guys line. And I mean,
or if you want to make the movie that's like cynical about or entering into the discussion about what was happening then, make the American espionage guys the bad guys, actually. Like, they really want to seize the power so that they can win, but they're doing it in, so they can win the Cold War.
Well, they gave us the corrupt espionage guy.
But then he just doesn't do anything. Like,
yep.
Like, what if those guys were actually the bad guys? Mm-hmm. If you want to do a reversal, actually make it explicit that Cate Blanchett is actually pretty noble, and it's the corrupt American military-industrial complex.
But you can't get away with that, at least then. You still have to make the communists the bad guys.
Yeah, I guess so. But if you can only be half-hearted about them being the bad guys, then, okay, well, no need to belabor that point. Although the very next scene makes that point again with Jim Broadbent comes and they go into the office, and it's not like it used to be.
He had to resign. And
yeah, he says, I barely recognize this country anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry your country is falling apart, but what's her name? Arena Spalko is invading. Like,
yeah.
We need to be marshaling our forces. She's trying to get those crystal skulls.
The Reds are all over the place, man. They've literally invaded the United States.
Their head agent
has
Area mind 51. Control powers. They really are that bad. So we have this long section where Indiana Jones is kind of sad and pensive. And do you agree with me that it feels like actually Spielberg's heart is in that movie? Like, he would like to make the sad, pensive Indiana Jones' old movie?
I mean,
if it's in anything. And
yeah, I mean, I think if Spielberg wants to make any Indiana Jones movie, it's the "Why did you drag me out?
Mm-hmm.
I'm old and tired, and why did you drag me out into another adventure movie?"
But then, as boring as a scene as it is, and as many times as we've seen it, there's a thing in the Joseph Campbell monomyth that happens in every one of these movies, and it needed to act as much as I'm bored by it, it needs to happen here, which is, it's called Reject the Call.
Yep.
Somebody comes and they call you to adventure. Obi-Wan says, Luke, you need to go to Dagobah with me, and you'll need to learn the ways of the Force. And he says, I can't go to Dagobah. I need to stay with my aunt and uncle. And then suddenly everything gets scorched and there's no turning back, and he's thrown into the adventure. But we need that scene where Luke Skywalker doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, he's suddenly faced with stepping outside of his door, and he's got cold feet.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's weird because a lot of movies, I think I might be saying, oh man, Jake, how many times have you heard me make these kinds of complaints? Like, oh man, did we really need to see the scene where the guy that we knew was going on the adventure rejected the call again? Like,
but it does work.
Yeah, it's the best argument against me is try doing the movie without it.
Exactly.
And suddenly you actually don't have much of a story.
Yeah. No, if Indiana Jones is just a stand-in for Spielberg, who spent the last 10 years, 15 years, not wanting to make another Indiana Jones movie, then just tell that story.
Right.
Like, Indiana Jones, for the past 15 years hasn't wanted to go on another adventure. Like
he
went on the adventure with his dad. It was great.
He found the Holy Grail, which I think, as you pointed out on our podcast, the Holy Grail is the Holy Grail
of Holy Grails.
Holy Grails. Like, yeah.
What else am I supposed to do? He found the Holy Grail, and he found the true
He found
Holy
what he'd
Grail,
really been searching for all along, his
which
dad.
was the relationship with the father.
Time to hang up the hat. Time to hang up the whip.
Yeah, and then, okay, dad's gone and dead. The hat and the whip are hung up. Or if you wanted to, you could say, dump a truckload of cash on Sean Connery's door and say, actually, everything wasn't great after that.
Yeah, no, I think Sean Connery's still alive. By many accounts, he's maybe not quite as adroit mentally these days, but I don't know. It seems like he's probably, at that time at least, 12 years ago,
fine.
He would have been fine to come in and do something. Maybe you have to work with him a little bit to get what you want, but
put him in a home. Put him in the nursing home. Let him be a senile old man who doesn't recognize Indy anymore.
Right. And Harrison Ford, as the Indy character, is facing the fact that I hung up my reason for existence, and actually this is my future.
Yeah. Like, this is it. Like, and then let's have a compelling enough reason for him to have to get back out and do it again.
Well, and then
let's have dad die on screen. Let's have dad be the one that has the moment of lucidity that says, Junior, Indiana, just because I'm dying doesn't mean that you have to be dead.
So we could even use him as the call to adventure somehow, like they did in Spectre. They had Judi Dench film a little cameo where James Bond has like a video cassette or something, and it's like, oh, by the way, James Bond, I'm dead now, but if you could just solve this whole other problem for me, please.
Right.
You could actually have not very lucid in a home Sean Connery say, oh, by the way, Indiana, you really need to solve the mystery of your mother by finding the crystal da-da-da.
Right. And why not?
And suddenly Indiana Jones has a personal stake in this.
Yeah. What if, okay, we're going to make the Saucerman movie, right? Okay, Indiana, there's something I need to tell you. Your mom didn't die. She was abducted by space aliens. And Indy thinks, poor dad,
and somebody forget to give him his medicine.
Yeah. And then he finds a thing. And then he sees a clue. And then, oh my goodness, wouldn't that have been an awesome movie?
That would have been an awesome movie.
That would have been cool.
If you want to have him like, I hung up my hat, I don't have a reason to live, and I actually burned all my relationships while being a great adventurer, and so now my dad's dead. Then, if you want to bring Karen Allen into it and have him reconnect with Marion, there's actually a reason, there's a payoff. It's like,
yeah,
this is the reward at the end of Indiana Jones reconnecting with who he should be, is he's going to find the family that he thought he didn't have or something like that.
Thought he couldn't have. But
he's going to find it because he's going to have the courage to overcome a thing.
Right.
As opposed to what they do, which is just...
Well, and if you do something like make it about his mom, well, you can also then make it about healing his relationship with women. Like you can explore the psyche of a man who's run through a bunch of women in his life, who also grew up without a mom, and views women cheaply.
Yeah. And if you're going to do that, that gives you a great excuse to do a 3-minute Kate Capshaw, I'm so annoyed with you.
Yeah.
We run into each other in a bar in Tibet kind of scene. Yeah.
Like you can justify bringing the chick from Last Crusade back in some kind of dream encounter or something like that.
Yeah, let's get all three of them. Let's make it about Indiana Jones.
He's processing the fact that he's been
a bad serial womanizer.
He's been trying to fill up his mother hunger as much as he was out adventuring, trying to fill up his father hunger. And now he needs to be complete.
And maybe people out there are thinking, you want an Indiana Jones movie about that? Of course we do. That's what you could describe Last Crusade in the same terms. That's Steven Spielberg needs to be excited about this, to have some kind of a theme that he's actually locked into. This is about more than just let's find the object. Let's find the object really only worked once. It worked for Raiders. Temple of Doom, not really. And the Last Crusade, no.
It wasn't about that.
It wasn't about that.
Dad was the Holy Grail.
Yeah, the object was a red herring.
If you didn't know that, I'm sorry that you are slow in understanding what the movie's about, but Dad was the Holy Grail.
Right.
And that's the level that Spielberg needs to be able to process an Indiana Jones film on to be excited about it. So okay, it doesn't have to be Mom, but Mom's a great idea, all things considered.
Probably one that Spielberg would lock into, I would think.
I think he could lock into it and say, I've never actually told that. Like, I've never actually done that. Like, and actually, that makes sense of my younger self too. And I can process that, and I can process my relationship with my ex-wives and my kids. Also, the fact that I don't really want to go on another adventure and I'm too old for this crap. Like, all of that can be in the mix. And then maybe we'll get an actual good Indiana Jones movie that's worth watching more than once.
Yeah.
You know?
That's worth watching once.
Exactly.
Actually.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, and you just compare, you think about everything that we've seen in this movie up to the point that we're discussing through the Jim Broadbent. It's not like it used to be seen. And then you compare that to the wit and charm and everything was packed into Raiders of the Lost Ark up to that point. The number of jokes and gags and great action moments and everything.
Yeah. Well, and that is the other stupid thing about this is like, how lazy is it to create 3 characters and tell us that we're supposed to care about their relationship to Indiana Jones? You've got the Jim Broadbent character, you've got the spy character, and you've got the crazy archaeologist character.
Yeah. And they're all stand-ins for characters in other movies. The crazy archaeologist guy, John Hurt, is obviously Abner Ravenwood, you know, like the Marion Dad character.
Exactly. And again, Abner is, I was just thinking this before you made that same connection. I was thinking, why not have it be, if you don't want Mom to be the one to have been abducted by aliens, and you want to bring Karen Allen back into it, and whatever, and make it matter, let's have it be, actually, Abner didn't die. Abner was abducted by aliens. Whatever. We want a space movie. Let's do the space alien movie, Saucerman movie. Give us an excuse to deal with mommy and daddy issues again in a way that will matter to somebody somehow, some way.
Yeah, at least that's connected with something that we all remember from these movies we've seen dozens of times.
Yeah, and then we can...
And then do what you ever put up with whatever
then
pain.
I don't feel like there's stakes.
Yeah.
That matter to us, the viewer, who's coming back to a character we have nostalgia for.
And then if you want to build a family for him, get Short Round. You can either hire the kid, or if you don't like him as an adult, recast, get some diversity points, hire an Asian actor.
Yeah.
Do whatever you need to get stupid Gimli off of his couch and come do your movie, John Rhys Davies.
Yep.
And then you have a family that we actually
Well, look, if you're doing a Saucerman movie, it's so easy to go back to Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like, just do the stupid History Channel, or Nicolas Cage, whatever. The pyramids were built by aliens. Let's have the pyramids be the spaceship, let's whatever, Stargate or whatever. I don't know. Like, there's enough lore about that sort of thing, or fear or whatever. And like, the hieroglyphics with the heads and the stuff and the, like, plenty of excuses to bring Sulla back. Like, I just don't understand.
Well, the other thing I read...
It just takes, I've not put any creative energy. You haven't put any maybe you have, but I've not before talking about it now into any of this stuff. It's just like, we're spitballing live on air. Neither of us have ever thought about how we would do this movie because we just saw it and we're disgusted by it. Any of this sounds way more exciting.
Well, the other thing that I read that was interesting, which I do have some sympathy for, is I guess after Last Crusade, which was 1989, Lucas said, I know we all said we were going to hang up the hat and the whip, but I really want to make another one. And he started actually fast-tracking Indiana Jones and the Saucermen. And it was really getting actually some traction, is my understanding, in the 90s. And then a little movie came along called Independence Day in 96. And Spielberg just said, George, I can't compete with that. These guys did it. Like, they made the 1950s Saucermen movie for today, and they made it. We can't top that.
They blew everybody's mind.
Right.
And they found the guy who had the same sauce that Harrison Ford had, and you can't even put Harrison Ford up against Will Smith right now. Like, he's just going to look like a cheap Will Smith, or like he doesn't have it. Like, I can completely see. I mean, Independence Day was its own blockbuster game changer in that same.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it. I loved Independence Day when I was a kid. I haven't watched it within the last 10, 20 years, but
Yeah,
that movie
who cares if it holds up?
But it was iconic at the time, and it felt big, and it felt like a game changer, and it was.
I'm gonna say it. Yeah, Tim Buck says it holds up as being a worthy movie in the same vein as any fun Spielberg blockbuster popcorn movie.
I think that's probably true. I think it probably has a lot more cringe than Spielberg at its best, and just like dumb things. But Will Smith in his prime, Goldblum in his prime,
Goldblum. Some other fun side characters. You know.
Randy Quaid in his prime.
Well, Randy Quaid was awesome in that movie, and so was Harvey Fierstein.
Yeah, Harvey Fierstein. And forget my lawyer.
And then who could give us a more brilliant president's speech than
Bill Pullman? He's
Bill
great.
Pullman. Yeah. So for some reason, when I want to pull Bill Pullman, my mind tries to pull Jeff Daniels, and when I want to pull Jeff Daniels, my mind pulls Bill Pullman. And Jeff Daniels is what I kept, but I knew that was wrong.
More like Jeff not Pullman, at least as far as Jake's concerned.
What a great pull, man.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay, so I guess if we're just... Yeah, well, anyway, I guess we're both saying if you're Spielberg and you have the makings of a pretty good Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men movie, and then Independence Day hits, I can sympathize with...
Being like having your heart taken out of it. Yeah,
it's like you've already done the ultimate saucer movie with Close Encounters, the ultimate benevolent saucer movie, and then somebody else comes along and does the ultimate malevolent saucer movie. Yeah. And it's just like there's not a lot of room left to play here. I mean, what are you going to do that Independence Day didn't already do?
Use ET aliens.
Yeah.
Use some aliens from Star Wars. Weave and interlock those worlds just a little bit.
Yeah, I wish that I wish
they had R2D2 and C3PO in the hieroglyphics and
well, I wish they would have just done it actually, because I think the world's big enough for 2 Saucer Men movies or as many as you want to make. I love big splashy alien invasion movies, and I liked Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds as derivative, and Spielberg's no longer really in his lane as that was, and any movie with invasions from outer space I'm there for. And Indiana Jones versus invaders from outer space, I'd definitely be there for. I mean, you just put Indiana Jones in the plot of Independence Day, and I'm there for that.
Yeah. Well, they did Cowboys and Aliens or whatever.
Yeah, which I guess I wasn't there for that. I've never seen that movie. Either. I wanted to be there for that. I just heard it was bad, and so I never tried. But
yeah,
I was excited about the concept of it.
Yeah. Yep.
I was excited that they had Craig and Ford.
Yep.
Okay.
Imagine that, you and I being in the same place on something like that.
Yep, that's weird. Speaking of weird, we now have, after like what feels like 40 minutes of the movie of Indiana Jones in this extended opening sequence, and then he's just like sad because he's fired and or on permanent sabbatical, all the things we really pay for when we go to an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah. Trade Federation politics.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have the introduction of our good friend Shia LaBeouf, or however one pronounces his name. He comes out of the mist in that train station. He's dressed up in the exact outfit of Marlon Brando from the famous motorcycle rebel movie from the 50s, The Wild Ones. It's really stupid.
It's
really stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only 2 kinds of people that are sitting in that theater. There's people that actually... There's more that's stupid than just the Wild Ones outfit, but let me concentrate on that. There's people that actually have seen that poster or remember that movie, and they're just like, why is this guy cosplaying as Brando?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people who have never seen it, and
like, what's this?
Yeah, it means nothing to them. It's not established. Why is Shia LaBeouf wearing a weird outfit, and what is this supposed to tell me about him? Why does he have that dorky hat? And
why is this played as a pretentious moment? It means it. I feel like it's supposed to hit with some note.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hitting any notes for me. So
it's exactly the same problem with, we're going to show you the Ark. It's like, oh, there's the Ark. I sure do recognize that. I guess it means something to me. Or there's the Ark. I don't recognize that, and I don't care. Those are the kind of, it's giving, we always say give them 2 and 2 and let them make 4. It's just saying 2 + 2 = 4, and either you care about 4 or you don't. But it's like, if you care about 4, then they've just told you the most obvious thing ever. And if you don't care about 4, then you just don't care about 4. Like, if you can do something that evokes Marlon Brando and the Wild Ones, that's paying people that know the Wild Ones a compliment.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like, I think I probably, when I saw Crystal Skull in theaters, I probably, when we opened Area 51 with that shot and we had the Ark music playing, I probably was a little geeked by that. That would have been, I think that was the cool moment right there. You have to leave it at that. And evoke the feeling, evoke the thought, evoke the thing, but don't
just do the thing. Don't just do it.
And if you're gonna, you can do the thing when there's a great big wink, right? Like you can burn the Nazi symbol out of the crate that's carrying the Ark.
Or if you're gonna if you have to have it, then you better just do something with it. I think, if you really want the Ark to be in there, let's have somebody knock the lid off and then get fried by it, or something.
That would have been fun.
I mean, I don't know what. Obviously, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah. Let's knock the lid. Let's blow the crate open in the process. Let's see some remaining some of the communists are chasing Indiana Jones out of the place, and then the door shuts, and we see some communists gather around. What is this thing? And then all of a sudden, Indiana Jones is running, other communists are running, and then things are happening in the the warehouse that you can't see.
That'd be fun.
It's just an illusion. We know what happened to them. They opened that thing, and now they're getting the wrath of God poured out on them like the Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, that's still the wrong decision. The best decision is don't show the stupid art.
Right. But if you're going to show it,
then
make it fun.
Make it fun. Yeah. And that would be a fun joke. The bunch of random bad guys are gathering around, and then we just cut to exterior shot. Something's happening. Okay. So Shia LaBeouf shows up. He gets Indiana Jones' attention on a train. He wants to tell Indiana Jones that Oxley, this character we've never heard of, found a skull, and we hear about deity carvings and Akator and mystical lost cities, and
enough little geeking out from Harrison Ford to feel like, oh, yep, he's still the geeky professor, and enough little staged banter that, you already know.
Yeah, is there anybody that wasn't like, oh, there's Indiana Jones Jr.?
Yep. Oh, and he's saying, don't go to school. Oh, that's going to come back later.
Yeah, so there's that problem. I mean, I think you were a little bit hard on LaBeouf in our last episode. I think I think he's fine. I mean, I think you could write a character for him that would be fine. It would need to probably be a wimpy character that manned up in Act 3 or something like that, but you could make him work. I don't actually think he's a bad actor.
I don't think that I don't think he's a bad actor, but I think the character is bad. And I don't think if you're going to play him as if the character you want to write for this story is somebody who feels like they can fall in the line of Indiana Jones, then he's got to feel like a millennial Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And LaBeouf doesn't feel like that. He feels like some other kind of millennial,
yeah,
but he doesn't feel like a millennial Harrison Ford. And so you're going to have to cast somebody that is a little more square-jawed. He can be more insecure than Harrison Ford, but he's got to be able to take a punch and give a punch and feel like a man. Now, if you want to write the character that's the more wimpy version and have that be a contrast and still have him be Indy's son, that's fine. You can cast LaBeouf for that.
There has to be some interesting contrast. I don't know. I mean, when you were talking, I was just thinking, what if one of those preppy guys in the background were Indiana Jones' son? That might be something. That'd be interesting. Like a guy in a preppy jacket who's just like a nerd and, has a girlfriend in a poodle skirt and everything. Let's have some kind of actual cultural crash one way or another. They just don't really have an angle on. Again, I mean, we're just repeating ourselves, but
yeah,
they don't have an angle on this material.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? The only real angle they have is Indiana Jones is going to be indulgent and tell him the real things that Indiana Jones believes. And then once he finds out he's his son, he's going to say the
opposite things.
You need to go back to school and you need to not, just be a jerk.
No, I'm going to be a terrible father suddenly.
Right. Now that I feel
actually a good one.
Which I think that's a funny joke. It's not funny the way the movie does it, but it's a good conceit. Once he feels like he has to try to be a father, he's a worse father than when he's just being himself. I enjoy that conceit.
That is a good joke.
But they didn't really do anything with it.
Well, and it's not just a good joke. It is a true to life joke. It's getting at a truth that's real. It is much easier to just accept someone who's not your son for who they are and give them good advice, fatherly advice about who they are and where they're going in life, than a son that you can't help but have ambitions for that blind you to maybe who God made them to be. Like, that's a struggle every father deals with different kids. Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so
maybe your son was born to be the world's greatest mechanic, but I'd really like him to go to college. Any other guy you meet, you just say, "Oh yeah,
there's
you're
nothing
gifted
wrong
to be
with
a great
being
mechanic.
a mechanic. You'd be a great one.
Provide
And this
for your
is a great
family."
way for you to." But that's outside of my expertise, experience, and I want you to be like me, and I'm a college professor. And
so, good idea. One of the good ideas in the movie, but it's not really given the space to breathe, or they don't mine any emotion from it. They don't mine that many laughs from it. It's just kind of cute and there. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that. We need to talk about the actual mythology at the heart of this film.
Is there mythology at the heart of this film?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. It's not really there, is it? Like,
no.
They don't.
No.
I'm still unclear on what was even really at stake. Like, I guess if what's her face, if Cate Blanchett gets the skull, she's going to be able to rule the world with mind control or something like that. But I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know.
Well, and obviously that wasn't really the case.
If the Nazis get the Ark, we have a picture in a textbook that Indiana Jones shows us of a ray, like a laser ray coming out of the Ark and decimating an army. It's like these Nazis are going to carry this thing into battle and they are going to win World War. They don't actually say that sentence, but it's clear.
That's the clear threat. And we all have some basic understanding, or most of the audience has some basic understanding that when they carried the Ark into battle, they did win.
Right. A little less clear in Temple of Doom, but at least we know whoever has these stones is going to be able to.
The time when they didn't, but you know,
well, yeah, when the bad guys had it, it knocked over their statue and blah blah blah. But intuitively, on an emotional storytelling level, we understand in Raiders of the Lost Ark, whoever gets the Ark wins everything. Temple of Doom, a little less clear. We talked in that episode how it's not clear, but at least we kind of know whoever has these stones gets to be in control. And
also we got sucked into this thing now, and we're going to be trapped here in George Lucas's id forever unless we can fight our way out of it.
Right.
And we and look at all these slave children too. Like, let's fight our way out of George Lucas's id and free the children while we're at it. Like, there are stakes that you feel are real and are introduced.
Right. It's a little bit muddled, but it's there. And then Temple of Last Crusade, obviously, whoever has the cup, has eternal life, basically rules the world.
Invincible.
I don't know what was at stake at this movie. I don't really know what Akator is or why it's important. I know that there was an Amazon tribe that did something. I mean, they
worship the aliens.
It's been a few weeks since I've watched this movie. I don't remember like who was who, or like none of the mythology has really stuck with me. And well, here's a question. Do you think it's the fault? Do you think that there's a good Crystal Skull to be made, or do you think they just picked bum mythology?
I think there is a good, I don't know that it's Crystal Skull, but there's a good Saucerman movie to be made with the real mythology that resonates. Like,
well, they obviously wanted to do the Ancient Aliens kind of thing, but so they could get some jungle adventure in there.
Yeah, but
we need a history lesson on. There needs to be
what it is and why it matters, and it needs some specificity to it. Something that you can put your hand, and it needs to have something that it resonates with. Like,
it's where Marvel movies, it's really obvious the way that they do it. And
let's spend time talking about Soviet experiments in mind control.
Right.
Let's spend time talking about all of the avenues and ways that they want to control let's use it as an analogy or a metaphor for media and entertainment and whatever else we want to do. Like, and I know that, okay, obviously they're uncomfortable with that. Why? Because it's true. But, let's just do the thing. You're going to make the movie. You have to do the thing.
Well, the Spielberg
talk about subliminal messaging and talk about stuff like that. And then talk about how there was a legend and there was a thing and like a whole city of people, like make them have done something crazy. Like they would all come under the power of this thing, and then they would all dance in rhythm and throw themselves over a cliff like lemurs, or I don't know what. Like,
yeah, just make it clear. And if you can have a picture in a textbook or something that just, like what
puts a button on it.
The Marvel movies, it's always going to be like, I will now tell you the story of this particular, what are they called? Infinity Stone. And then we'll go into the same boring scene of some planet being decimated as people scream as the villain of the week has possession of the stone, but at least it makes it clear, like, this is what the thing does.
It enables you to kill the people.
Right. It's like,
it gives you power.
I really needed like that story of the tribe that disappeared and how it had been woven into their legend or something like that, you know.
Pyramids all across the world, you know. Well, and let's globetrot a little bit. You can even just globetrot to India, or not India, Egypt. Say hi to Sulla, make a camel joke, see R2-D2 and C-3PO on a pyramid and say, oh, well, that's not.
Right.
And then get on a plane and go to South America or Mexico or wherever it is you want to go, where you're going to find the different pyramids that have the different.
But then Spielberg would maybe have to film
connected to the pyramids.
America.
Just do pyramids.
Yeah, pyramids are cool. Indiana Jones. The fact that we've never seen Indiana Jones stand on the pyramids at Giza is a crime. Like he needs to at least stand in front of those.
Yeah, it's archaeologists, man. Play some pharaoh things and some things that just like resonate. Like, let's talk about King Tut and, you know, where did the wealth come from? Where did the pyramids come from? And why do they line up the way that they do? And let's do all the dumb History Channel conspiracy theories about ancient aliens. Everybody at that point in time who's seeing this movie has seen some of that stuff late at night, flipping through the channels, like, and stopped because they found it interesting.
Yeah.
Even though they knew it was stupid. Like, play with that stuff. There's a whole rich sandbox that, like, the reason the History Channel can still do that stuff is because there's enough rich lore about that in interest in lost civilization. You can just, it's silly. You take that and you put Sputnik and some Soviet Union mind control experiments together. Like, you really can make this thing work, but they just didn't want to put in the elbow grease or what? Like,
yeah, well, and they didn't want to pick on our good friends in Russia too much. I mean, I love Soviet era, like old James Bond movies and stuff. The Cold War iconography and Cold War kind of pulp conceits are so much fun. Yeah. Russian mind control agents, awesome. I'm there for it.
So do it in a way that's wholehearted and full-throated, or don't do it. And let's go with Argentinian Nazis.
And I think that there's ways to split the difference besides actually splitting the difference. We don't need to make Cate Blanchett kind of not feel that bad. Let's make her the most evil Natasha and Boris villain possible. And then if you need to have like some sympathetic Russian kid show up for a scene or two just to show us that there were good Soviets.
Not all Russians are bad.
Great. We'll pay that price, but don't make us pay the price of not having villains that we can actually be scared of.
Yep. And enjoy when they get their comeuppance.
Yeah. I mean, I actually really like the idea of the espionage guys turning out to work for Russia, or, I mean, actually the idea of his friend working for Russia is good, but they just throw it away. Like,
yeah.
What is the point of this stupid, what's that guy's name? Mac? Why is he in the movie? What is he getting? Why doesn't Indiana Jones shoot him like halfway through? Why is Indiana Jones so dumb that he keeps believing this guy when he says he's a triple, quadruple?
He's a double agent. No. He's a triple agent. No. He's a quadruple agent.
I guess my theory on that is I just think Spielberg is so bored by this material that he's like, well, what can I do to make this interesting? Let's get Ray Winstone. He's a good actor. He's kind of a fun, scrappy British guy that's he'll be fun to work with. And so let's just give him something to do. We'll give him a suitcase of money.
Let's let him be a stand-in for the capitalist who also gets his comeuppance.
Yeah, let's even give him the stupid line. I'm a capitalist, Jonesy. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the communist greed for knowledge and the capitalist greed for wealth undoes them both. The communist greed for knowledge is like, what?
The famous communist greed for knowledge. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I mean, it's another nice conceit that they do nothing with. I like the idea of the bad guy whose goal is to know unknowable things, and at the end their comeuppance is they know too much and they die. That's a nice little conceit for an Indiana Jones movie.
Sure.
But I didn't even feel like I locked on to that being who Cate Blanchett was until she was punished in such a way that I had to retroactively decide that's kind of who her character was.
Right.
But I didn't really get that going into it.
No, they did a much better job with Ilsa and her motivations.
Yeah, or with Belloc.
Yeah.
He's willing to work with the Nazis because
he wants the
transmitter to God. He wants to. Yep. He really believes in this stuff. He's a true zealot.
He's going to make us do the ritual and wear the priestly garments and stuff.
Yeah, and he's gonna. Well, I guess he doesn't get punished the worst. Probably the torturer guy gets punished the worst, but he's gonna get punished the second worst. His head's gonna explode. Okay, so we got that motorcycle scene, which I like. I wish the motorcycle scene, instead of being the worst scene in the movie, or instead of being the best scene in the movie, was the worst. Like if the motorcycle scene was like the bare minimum.
Yeah, well, you got a good movie at that point. Like, yeah. But yeah, what a sad best scene.
Yeah, it's not much. It doesn't begin to even be in the pantheon of great Indiana Jones action scenes, but at least it kind of feels like it exists in our world with our physics and with Harrison Ford's older body doing things that it might be able to plausibly do.
Slightly better than the raft scene.
Yes. The raft scene in
Temple.
Yep. Well, because this movie has a dumb raft scene. Its own too. Bad raft scene where the characters defy all logic and physics to do things they wouldn't be able to do.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to go to some ruins and find a thing, more mythology we don't care about. That little Indian guy's going to jump around or whatever he is.
Naked Indians jumping around.
Yeah, we're going to have our token moment of xenophobia with this guy jumping around, and then we're going to shoot a dart backwards into his mouth. Our one little moment of gleeful violence, maybe. And a nice villain dispatch that, but if that's the most interesting thing that your movie has, then that's not saying much.
Pretty risky move, that one, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how I would have done that.
Yeah, well, you're relying on the fact that somehow this dart is going to be poisoned on both ends, and
you're going to be able to beat him to the blow and blow harder, and why not just like punch him in the throat?
Yeah, once again, if this was Raiders of the Lost Ark, that would be one weak gag among...
Well, yeah, but yeah, in a movie that has fun gags like that, you just like, hey, it's a fun gag. It's fine. But I think that this movie is so bad it's worth picking on it. Like,
yeah, that was the best table scrap you could give us.
Yeah.
Like if you're giving us a perfect meal, then we'll accept some okay dinner rolls. But if the best thing that your movie has is these dinner rolls,
you pull out the dinner rolls as
these
the main
Pillsbury
course.
Disney dinner rolls, it's like, oh man, we still don't know what's at stake. We still don't know that the Soviets are even in it. We assume they are, I think, because we've seen movies before. But there's a long stretch of this movie that kind of just still feels like first act setup.
Well, how long does it take to get to Karen Allen? Like
we're like halfway through, I think.
I know.
And the story hasn't even really kicked in.
And then we're supposed to have another moment where we're like, oh, and then we still have to like get to the inevitable reveal that Mutt's Indy's son. It's like,
which they throw that away in that dumb bad comedy scene with we're falling into quicksand on an obviously constructed set, and he's going to throw a snake to Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones doesn't like snakes. I remember that.
Hilarious.
Nom nom, popcorn's delicious. I'm stupid.
You need the moment with Indy and the snakes when you're doing an Indy reprise, a curtain call 10 or 15 years later. That's fine, but I mean, again, you deserve to have it made fun of. If you're not any one of these, moments in and of themselves, it's like, okay, well, we can forgive that if you give us a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, that has good moments. Like, we'll forgive the dorky moment, and we'll say, yeah, this, you had to have the snake in there. It was inevitable. And he threw the snake. Okay, it's kind of dopey, but hey, I like it. Why do I like it? Because I like everything else, and therefore I like this.
Yeah, there's no perfect Indiana Jones movie besides maybe Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Temple of Doom and Last Crusade both have moments that you only go with because you're going with everything else.
Yeah, but you've got to move the tide in a direction, like this is just still water.
Well, so much of this movie is just banking on the fact that we're bringing capital from the other movies, and it's like
you can't do that in any movie. You just can't do it. You can't afford to do that.
You can't do that in life, Like I still have to be Jake's friend again tomorrow. Yeah. Yes, you can do that in life, but I mean,
there are times that you take things for granted or depend on things, but it's still like
relationships with people are always developing. They're always moving forward. Relationship with movie characters are too. Like, we're not just here to remember how great Marion was in the other movie. She has to be doing something.
She has to have a reason to be here now.
Yeah.
The reason is we wanted nostalgia and drama with Indy's son, but
they don't even do any drama. That's the other thing. The image that's stuck in my head of Karen Allen from this movie is Karen Allen just smiling. She smiles
exactly
through this whole movie. And that's not, that is Karen Allen. When you see her in interviews, it seems like she's just really excited to be in another Indiana Jones movie. She's just what another generation would have called a real spitfire. She's just one of those ladies who's enthusiastic and excited and happy to be there and happy that somebody remembered her. I don't mean to be mean about that, but it really just feels like Karen Allen is really happy to be there. That's the exact opposite of the Marion Ravenwood character from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The whole conceit with her is she's not happy to be there. She's been being dragged along. She whines all the time. She wants to make Indiana pay through the nose for burning down her bar, and then they're going to gradually fall in love and all that. But there's a lot of built-in conflict with that character. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's weird how much they don't lean into that at all.
Well,
does she punch him? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I mean, do they give us something obvious like that even?
I don't think so. We're supposed to take that character, have her be pregnant and jilted at the altar by Indiana Jones, and then be all Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
20 years later.
And basically ready to fall back into his lap without any work on his part. Yeah. It's a pretty sexist conceit, actually. She's just been waiting for you all this time. Doesn't really matter who you are now or what happened or the fact that she had to raise a son by herself for however old Shia LaBeouf's supposed to be, 25 years. It's okay. She's been waiting to marry you, mostly just because that's what the fans always talked about should happen. Not because anybody really believed in it or had a good story to tell about it. So I don't know what happens then. I guess there's really only two big things that happen in this movie after that. There's the action scene, the big action scene in the jungle with all the terrain eating computer generated vehicles and stuff.
Yep. And the ants. That's when, if you're a true Indiana Jones fan and you're sitting in the theater the first time, that's when your heart just finally dies and you just give up. You've been waiting the whole time. It's not been great. You keep giving it the benefit of the doubt. You keep trusting that there's going to be that set piece and that.
Steven Spielberg's capable of doing a lot of things poorly. We've seen bad things in his other movies, but at the end of the day, when Steven Spielberg has to deliver a big action set piece, he's going to do it. The Lost World's a bad movie. I guess you said you'd never seen it, right?
Yeah.
It's a bad movie, but it's got its big action scene, and it's a good big action scene with the trailer dangling over the cliff. I'm sure people remember. He can do that in his sleep. This was the big action scene. This was the movie was designed around this. And man, I don't even remember Indiana Jones doing that much. I remember Shia LaBeouf sword fighting.
Yeah, he's sword fighting and jumping between.
I remember him doing the Tarzan thing and getting a bunch of monkeys.
Yeah, he does a Tarzan thing.
And then Indiana Jones has a fist fight with that Russian thug, the ants. I guess that guy comes the closest to being the scenery chewing Russian villain that I wanted from this movie, but he doesn't really get much to do.
He has a good moment early in the movie.
When he ties his shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good moment. But then those bad CGI ants. And there's been so many movies that have done that sort of thing, like the stupid 1999 Mummy had those scarab beetles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's what you really don't want to do when you're Spielberg is you don't want to be caught
being a cheap ripoff of somebody
of
else's
your competitors.
Idea.
Somebody came along and did a bad ripoff of Indiana Jones. You can do a lot of things and fail in a lot of ways, but you don't want to seem like you're cribbing from
people who are trying to crib from you.
Yeah. That's a bad look. And I think probably maybe the best read on it is Steven Spielberg just never saw The Mummy, because why would Steven Spielberg waste his time?
There's only two takes. One, he never saw it and nobody ever said, that's from this other, or he thought, well, let me show these whippersnappers how it's done. But
that's great. Show us how it's done then, Steve.
Yeah, don't fall on your face, please.
Yeah.
You're going to swing for the fences, make it look like you swung for the fence. We'll forgive you for striking you out. It's got to feel like you swung for the fences, though. It doesn't even feel like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think George Miller coming along in his 70s and doing Mad Max is a real slap in the face to this movie. Old people can come back and do the thing that they were known for and do it
better with all the modern tools.
Not just recreate it, and not just one up it, but 20 up it.
Make all previous work irrelevant.
Right. Yeah, that's what you that's what you want. You want this to be the Indiana. You want kids the same way that kids are actually with the prequels. a lot of kids, once they've seen those lightsaber fights, they don't have any patience for Luke being a dork in Empire Strikes Back with his little blue lightsaber when he's fighting Darth Vader. That's just slow and boring.
Yep.
You kind of, where's the flips?
Yep.
George Lucas knew well enough to do it then.
Yeah.
But
one up yourself, buddy.
Yeah, this is not a one up. This isn't even a parallel. This isn't even a lateral move.
Look, I'm just going to keep coming up with more ideas here, but okay. One argument is, well, part of the problem with the action scene and the reason we had to go CGI and whatever else with the stuff is that Harrison Ford can't do the thing.
That's just an argument for don't make the movie, or an argument for you have to build the entire conceit of the sequence around the fact that he's going to be driving. Like
exactly.
Harrison Ford actually could do most of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So here's my conceit. He's shown us that he can fly a plane before, he just doesn't know how to land it. What if we threw him in a flying saucer that he had to fly?
There you go.
I made that the action scene.
Yeah.
Like, we can do that.
That's something we've never seen before.
And let's make a Han Solo joke at that moment and not, I have a bad feeling about this at a different moment. You're going to make it the Han Solo joke. Like, make him fly a spaceship.
Mm-hmm. That
in and of itself is a good Han Solo joke. Let's have Mutt's style be a leather vest.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly when we see it in the context of a spaceship, that'll be a fun joke. I don't know. I'm spitballing things that could be really stupid, but I mean,
it's something. It's
something, right? Like, feels like what you didn't do is sit in a writer's room and brainstorm great ideas to throw away. So here you go. Here are a bunch of ideas to throw away, but eventually we're going to get to the good one.
Right. Well, and if you want to keep it earthbound, I think you still need, I don't know. I mean, maybe they just exhausted everything. We have the iconic truck chase, the iconic mine chase, and the iconic tank chase. You kind of need the fourth thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Like, it can't just be some random vehicles. One of them is a CGI thing that chews up foliage in a jungle. There has to be,
we even did a boat chase that was pretty James Bondish.
And so even if we're repeating ourselves, this has to be the blank chase. It has to be like, what will Indiana Jones do with this vehicle? What will he do with this obstacle? And yeah, I mean, maybe spaceship by that metric actually was the way to go, because
it's not a bad one when you've got an old man and you need something that's different. I don't know.
Have Shia LaBeouf sliding around on the top of that thing, trying to keep his balance. I mean, there's stuff you could do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that was all in the rejected Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men from Mars thing.
Yeah, maybe it was. But listen, if you make a terrible movie, I reserve the right to spitball 1,000 ways to make it different.
I'm just trying to think what other vehicles on Earth they haven't used, and Indiana Jones has used.
So you put it in the
all of them.
Putting it in the 50s, so maybe he's got to fly a drone. Maybe he's got to fly a spaceship. Maybe it's a rocket thing. Like maybe it's a.
Or maybe let's just find some more interesting terrain. Maybe it's a really steep slope and everybody's whizzing down it. Maybe it's
or sliding down it. Yeah, maybe it's a rocket car.
Yeah. There's they kind of did do rocket car the way that he gets to the little 1950s the nuke site or whatever. So Spielberg sees you one and bets and loses his hand and loses a bunch of chips. Honestly, Jake, the same thing that happened to our last episode is happening to me right now, which is I absolutely have to get to our youth group.
And we've not finished. Are we doing a 3-parter or are we just going to call it good?
I think we're going to call it good. I think we do need to spend some time talking about the hero's journey stuff. So maybe we'll do maybe our next episode should be, I'm pitching this in real time on air, but maybe it should be like a
Indiana Jones
wrap up.
Where does hero's journey, superhero's journey.
Yeah, I have some things to say about where he's placed in all of that, and in this movie specifically.
Yep.
And kind of just the trajectory of heroes that got us to old lame Indiana Jones. There's definitely some things we want to say about that, but is there anything else we want to say about this movie specifically? I mean, you've got that scene at the end, curiously unenergetic and listless ending where they all just kind of converge at the temple and walk around,
make their way through some stuff, and then we've got the wedding at the end.
Yeah, he takes that hat.
Takes that, and then he slicks his hair back, and see, it didn't really register with you, did it? Still did it. Still didn't register. I don't think I actually had the thought that, his iconic thing is his hair instead of a hat. Did not register with me.
It's not that iconic.
Until I had to think about it. So
I'm not a hater of the spaceship at the end or the aliens. I mean, I think they both could have worked in a vastly different movie.
I'm not a hater of the idea of bringing Indiana Jones into contact with space aliens.
I will tell you what I
might have been at the time when it came out, but at this point, I think there are lots of ways to actually do that movie well.
Yeah, and there's lots of evidence on the side of trust George, actually. Yeah. Don't trust him to write dialogue, but trust him to do other things.
Conceptually. Trust him conceptually. Yeah. Trust him creatively.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie's lame. That spaceship takes off.
Man, the more we get into this stuff, the more I just feel bad and sympathize with George Lucas and wonder how bitter of an old man he has to be. I gave you guys such great sandboxes, and then you kicked me out of all of them and told me I was stupid.
It'd be one thing if you actually showed me up
But you can't live up to a thing I've done.
The only thing that I think he's actually gone on record as really definitively saying that he liked, if I'm not mistaken, is Rogue One. I think he had some kind things to say about that one. Everything else, he's been political. Well, early on when Force Awakens hit, he did some interview where he compared it to watching his children be sexually assaulted or something like that. I think he got in trouble for that. Wasn't a very kind metaphor. So he came back and kind of cleaned it up, and he's been kind of a good politician with it ever since. And he doesn't say anything particularly nice about those movies, but he'll show up and do a little set visit on Solo and hang out with Ron Howard and be a good sport, And
he'll show up to The Mandalorian and talk to those guys, talk to his boy Filoni.
Yeah. So yeah, I have to imagine he is not happy with a lot of this stuff. And he's getting up there, but it would be fun if he got one more shot to do a Star Wars or something like that. I don't think he's gonna try to get back into the Indiana Jones sandbox at this point.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yep, too bad. Too bad this movie didn't work. Too bad that this podcast is ending. A podcast produced by me, executive produced by us. Oh man, I really have to get to youth group. We're not going to be able to do our patron choice award of awesomeness, but all our patrons are great, right, Jake?
They're all great. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Yeah, support us at patreon.com/sanity at the movies. We'll be talking about The Mandalorian. In fact, by the time you hear this, we've been actually basically in real time on Fridays releasing our hot takes on the new episodes of The Mandalorian season 2 over on Disney Plus. So if you want to hear us talk about that, Patreon's the place to do it.
Patreon.com/sanity at the movies.
Oh man, and boy is it great, and boy are our thoughts interesting.
Clone Wars!
Yay!
Woo!
Well, and Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, yep.
Mandalorian,
yay! Woo!
All right, bye. Until next time.
It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage.
That's not from this movie.
It should be.